everyone, I'm Marlowe. Welcome to my YouTube channel. On this video, it's all about Betty May Page, the legendary iconic pinup, and finally revealing a fragrance that the iconic star definitely wore in the 1950s. If this is your first time here, I'm all about legendary perfumes and legends who wore them on this channel. And on this episode, it's all about Betty Page, the notorious, iconic pinup model of all time. And of course, I'm wearing appropriately for this video a 1950s bullet bra, as you can see, in homage to Betty and the 1950s, because the scent also that I discovered that she wore was released and is such a revolutionary scent since it came out, but not really spoke about. Only on my channel, of course, I've mentioned it many times. So when I finally discovered, okay, before I get into the fragrance, let's talk about Betty May Page. She was not only revolutionary and ahead of her times, scandalous for her time, but she had a tumultuous life that kind of just happened by being at the right place at the right time, bad place at the bad time. I do believe we are the masters of our movie, and she definitely had a fabulous life, being discovered and sort of falling into modeling later on in life when most models were already retired. Um, of course, her career peaked between 1951 and 1957 when she lived here in Manhattan, and also pursuing very seriously, must I say, an acting career at HB Studios, which I also took many classes at when I first moved to New York City. And it's basically sort of method acting, the Stanislavski method, and she was very serious, and I think that's why she had such fun with her work, because it was a form of acting to her, and she didn't take it seriously. She was always having fun, and that came through in the photographs. And Betty Page was not unlike, she wasn't like other idols we um, idolize in beauty and in fashion. She was her real own creation, not the Hollywood studios, not a photographer, not a designer. She was her own muse. She took her health, her looks, her skin, um, very seriously, and she was a Taurus, and she was ruled by Venus, and most Tauruses love fragrances, um, and also are very into a very simple aesthetic. And she really had a very minimal aesthetic, just red lipstick, mascara, fringe, blue black hair. And once she found that look, she kept it, and she looked actually very good, having no plastic surgery, um, very late in age. If you look at her at the Hugh Hefner Playboy Mansion in her 80s, right before she passed, she had great skin. She was a little heavy set, but she looked fresh, even at the very end. Um, and what makes Betty Page so fascinating and so inspiring to so many people in fashion and art and rock and roll, of course, she was the muse to all for rock and roll itself. And um, what makes her so special and we can see it till this day, is if you look at her photographs, they look completely timeless and fresh, even though they were taken in the 1950s. And she was a product of her time, but she was very simple and natural, and just very natural and at ease with her body and in front of the camera. She had great, just glistening skin when she was tan and when she wasn't. Um, and most people associate her with fetish and bondage photos, which, if you really look at her body of work in those 10 years, she was really mainly a pinup, and only did very few bondage and nude photos. Maybe 20% of her work was bondage and nude compared to all the other photographs she took with lingerie and just, bikini, and on the beach and just being natural. Um, she was not a fantasy. She was real, raw, sexual presence, which was the opposite of, Hollywood make believe. And it goes to show you that these Hollywood icons that we idolize in the beauty world and in fashion, of course, we know what they love to use, and we scrutinize their products and, their secrets. But the main formula that all these people miss the boat is that these celebrities and stars had a very minimal approach to cosmetics, and skincare and just beauty, um, the way it was back in the 50s and the 60s. And I can totally relate to that aesthetic. It's just having a good hairdo, good skin, manicured nails, usually lips match, your nail color, flawless complexion, and very minimal makeup, foundation. Now, if you look at what's going on online, and this, culture of, product and mass crazy culture of, superficiality, the stars then were real. And when you saw them in real life, they weren't a fantasy, they were the reality. And people could feel their aura and their beauty. And it was really just, enhanced with a little bit of a cosmetic. And Betty was definitely an example of a fresh face, beauty that was totally the picture of health, glamour, real glamour, in my opinion. A woman who took hygiene and good aesthetics to the ultimate, especially in the 1950s when, she was a female going to the gym every day, um, and really watching her diet, and creating her own look. Not a studio, not a photographer. She was her own invention, and that's what makes her so timeless and such a huge inspiration till this day. Um, Onto the fragrance, of course. Now, the way I usually found out with many of these videos that I do here on my channel is by doing extensive reading online and in books, and of course, looking at endless images and photographs of celebrities. And hopefully, that's when I find a bottle, like, in a picture with them. And there's so many pictures of Bettie Page putting on her makeup in different people's vanities, I guess, where she did photo sessions. And in this one photograph, I finally discovered a fragrance that, low key, I think I'm psychic AF, because I kind of pictured her wearing at least this fragrance. And when I saw it, I didn't think it was fragrance when I first saw it, but then I glanced over again and I was like, wait a minute. I know that I Dream of Jeannie bottle. And sure enough, it is a very iconic fragrance that was came out in 1955 and created such a massive splurge, sort of like Angel did in the 90s. This was that fragrance, but not only that, it was a drugstore, um, a very affordable fragrance, and it is none other than Intimate by the House of Revlon. Released in 1955, mentioned many, many times on this channel. This fragrance, when you open it and you smell it, now this is the bottle that revealed the secret. I've been wearing Intimate for 5 years now, and I've gone through endless bottles, especially the mists, which I find are the best formulas. I've gone through X-Straight. This is an EDT mist, 4 ounce. This is an EDP mist, 3 ounce. I have to have backups, at least 3. This is another 1959 mist, 3 ounce mist. But this is, when it was first released, it was just a perfume and an eau de toilette splash. And this is the bottle, I guess between 55 when it was released and I guess 59. This is how you can purchase the EDT, not in a mist, unfortunately. And this is the first mist that was released, I guess in 1959 or 58. But this is what revealed it, and this was probably all over Manhattan in 1955, because not only was it so accessible and affordable, but so a product of its time, a very va-va-voom, sexy, playful as well, naughty but nice fragrance. There's a very American bubbly quality about it, unlike the glamorous French, legendary perfumes. This inspired actually the French, because it was it's such an animalic. There's 5 animal notes at the base. The top and the heart notes itself read like bass notes in most today's fragrances, but this is just so dreamy, playful, intriguing. Intimate never shouts, it lingers, but oh, does it whisper. And when it's just like whispers, it's just like follows you. And when people get a whiff of Intimate, it's so magical. I discovered this, like I said, 5 years ago, and ever since it's been like a standard in my collection. It's not talked about on this on YouTube, I think, except for me, or maybe once I think someone's mentioned it. But I'm sure Bettie Page wore different eau de colognes, um, like most Tauruses do. And this was the fragrance that was in a photograph right next to her cosmetic case, that was, very popular of women of having in the 50s and 60s. And when I saw that, I went, wait a minute, I couldn't see the label. I knew, I was like, I know that bottle. And sure enough, it's this 1950s Intimate bottle, which, most of my videos that I do extensive research, and that's how I spook most of these, secrets, because I see it, in pictures, whether it's their vanities, in their bathrooms, in their bedrooms. And sure enough, this bottle, which is unmistakably Intimate by Revlon, was definitely worn either between 55 and 57 by Bettie May Page. And I'm sure, like I said, she wore other fragrances I can imagine her wearing, but this is such a final confirmation of an iconic perfume that totally suits the number one pinup of all time, the Dark Angel, um, Bettie May Page. And I'm so excited to dedicate this video to all the Bettie Page fans out there, and of course to Bettie Page herself. With that, I'd like to close. I will see you guys in my next video to come very soon. Bye bye.